Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk in depth about a recent piece of nerdy entertainment. We analyze it. We look at what we liked, what we didn't like, what worked, what didn't work. We talk about themes, we talk about tone, we talk about message, which means we talk about spoilers. That's why all of these warnings are around here, and what we are going to be spoiling tonight is the recent HBO Max DC superhero, DC Comics
Extending
series.
universe.
Exactly. Extended Universe series Peacemaker. So if you have not seen Peacemaker and you do not like spoilers, you should probably watch this show after you have seen Peacemaker. If you have seen Peacemaker and or you don't care about spoilers, then hang around. Let us know what you think in the chats. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitch. We're everywhere you need to chat. Well, pretty much everywhere. I'm sure there are other places where we could stream live, but we haven't figured them out yet.
Nope.
And that said, I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter, a couple of other places, doing some other things. Joining me tonight, I don't know, there's too many hats to choose from. We'll start with Byron. Byron, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. Byron McNeil, aka Byron D0 on multiple facets of the internet. Contributing writer, content creator, social media submitter. Do a couple different things around the site. Um, and I also do a little bit of art on the side. So if you like fan art, if you like web comics, I got a couple different projects. I'm on. I have my own. I just started my own art Twitter, BD0 Art. Same and BD0 Art on Instagram. And I have a webtoon series called Sisterhoods. Two words, Sisterhoods.
Check all of those out, folks. And joining us also is the man who started the entire Nerd Caliber vast intergalactic empire. Okay, maybe it's not that vast. Manny, introduce yourself if you would.
Hello, everyone. My name is Manny. I'm the founder of Nerd Caliber. Check us out. And it smells. Excuse me. Wow. Yeah, check out our stuff at nerdcaliber.com.
Absolutely. And also, if you are on YouTube, check out all the wonderful videos that we have on YouTube as well. And before we get into it, welcome to the show already. Got your links. And Davin Gaming says hello from Indonesia.
Oh, wow.
Hello back from the United States. Welcome to the show. So, we always start with an explanation of what it is we're talking about. Peacemaker is an 8-episode series, live-action series based on DC characters that ran on HBO Max, wrapped up a couple of Thursdays ago, and is written and directed every single episode by James Gunn of Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad fame. And in fact, Peacemaker was a character in the Suicide Squad.
Yes.
Relatively shortly after that, they announced that there was going to be a spin-off series based on the character John Cena played, Peacemaker. So what is Peacemaker, or who is Peacemaker? Peacemaker was one of the many characters that came when DC bought Charlton Comics in the 1980s, along with Captain Atom, The Question, and so on. And a bunch of other characters that didn't quite get integrated into the DC canon quite so strongly, like Peter Cannon, Thunderbolt, and Nightshade, and so on. If you know your Watchmen trivia and lore, you know that Alan Moore actually wrote Watchmen originally as using these Charlton characters that had just been acquired.
Yeah, I could see. I could see the.
Mm.
I can see the correlation with, like, say, the Question and Rorschach.
Oh, Question in Rorschach. And in fact, the original title that he pitched to DC was Who Killed the Peacemaker? So Peacemaker is comedian. Or
Wow.
at least comedian is Alan Moore's take on Peacemaker. DC said, yeah, no, we want to keep some of these characters alive because a lot of them die off, obviously, in the Watchmen. And said, why don't you just come up with some new ideas that are basically these guys, but give them new names? And that's why we have Watchmen. when James Gunn went to make Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad, the reboot sequel, yes, it's both. He pulled in well more than a dozen, probably close to 2 dozen, just really obscure DC, really minor characters, and Peacemaker was one of them. It was such a hit, and he was, according to what I've read, so impressed by Cena's ability to actually do drama, which he didn't know he could do. He hired him for, one, his size, and two, his comedic chops. When he was doing the scene where he was trying to kill Ratcatcher 2, that he went, wow, I think I can do something with this. And then wrote the entire season, or the entire series, or the entire first season, in about 8 weeks during COVID shutdown between making the Suicide Squad and making Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there we go. So we wound up, HBO went, sure, this sounds great. John Cena, absolutely. They brought back from the Suicide Squad 2 of the handlers that were Amanda Waller's team, Amelia Harcourt and John Economos, and then added to them some other characters to round out what is a new team that has a new mission from Waller, it called Project Butterfly. And that's where the show starts and proceeds through 8 episodes from there. Now, having given that rundown, this is what it's all about. We're going to start getting right into what it is that we liked about this show. And this time, I think I generally have a tendency to go counterclockwise. I think I'm going to go clockwise this time. Manny, what did you like about it? What worked for you? What did they shoot for? And as far as you think they actually hit the target?
I see what you did there.
Actually, I didn't, but yeah, I'll take it.
Well, this is probably one of the best superhero shows I've seen in a long time.
Mhm.
Recently, I think I've talked to some of you about this outside of outside of the live stream stuff, but I've been like almost like, I don't know if burnt out's the right word, but I felt like every superhero show was kind of like the same thing. As great as the Marvel shows are, the tone is always usually the same. Usually it never goes past a certain line when it comes to violence or language or anything like that, or themes really also. And the CW shows, they started out great. I mean, I love the Arrowverse in the beginning, but now is again all the shows except for Superman and Lois. That's actually a really good show. I'm surprised actually.
It's kind of jumped the shark at this point.
We'll see. The season hasn't been over yet, but that's a different show.
Well, I think just
Well, no,
I
I
think,
mean the CW verse as a whole.
right.
Oh,
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this show was like a breath of fresh air. It was just so good. The writing was so original. I am impressed how James Gunn made me hate this character from the Suicide. I mean, John Cena played him great, but he was terrible as a terrible supervillain or hero, whatever.
He was a bad dude.
Yeah, and he killed Red Flag, and that automatically put him on my like, oh, you must die list.
Just to be sure, spoilers for the Suicide Squad 2, in case you have not seen it, but we kind of have to be able to get into
Exactly.
Peacemaker's motivation and so on. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah, it's actually harder to say what didn't work. Everything, like acting, everyone, all the secondary characters shined.
Yep.
There was everything was. I mean, everyone had great lines. Everyone was funny. Wow, John Cena can improv. Stick around, but at the end of each episode, they show like sometimes show him a little scene where he just goes off, does his thing, and it's just so good. I watched this stuff at the WWE, and then I realized that the WWE sort of held him back a lot when is in his promos.
Really
and
did.
everything.
Yep.
Yeah, because his promos was always good. Were always good, but seeing this, like, wow, this is like really good acting, But yeah, it was just overall good. Action was great. I mean, it's such a weird. Like, if I would try to explain the premise to you about butterfly aliens taking over the Earth and a cow in space, that just sounds ridiculous, but it works. It balances the serious of the matter with the humor.
Yeah.
You know,
I would say if you've seen any of James Gunn's work, well, actually, it is. So it is kind of the plot of the Suicide Squad, and kind of the story of Slither, all kind of mashed together. You've got the giant alien thing that's breeding stuff in Slither, ultimately in the barn near the end. You've got, and then you've got, sort of research, I guess, being done, on an alien invader that they have to fight. It's an interesting mashup. But sorry, go ahead.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, so much we could talk about a lot about it. Vigilante, such a great character as well. I was impressed at how well liked, how much I liked that character. But yeah, but all of them. What's her name? Leota.
Yeah, Adebayo.
Yes. Adebayo, yes.
Yeah, great character. Yeah, all of them just works really well. They all just the chemistry of this cast is so good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so clear. Another bit of trivia. So Freddie Stroma, who plays Adrian, who plays Vigilante, came in after they had already filmed 5.5 episodes with the original actor. Gunn has said, he was absolutely wonderful, but they just didn't agree with where the character ultimately needed to go by the end of the series, and so they recast him and reshot every scene that Vigilante was in. Wow, and they still made their deadline.
Wow. Amazing. Wow.
That is
good call. Yeah. But let me just stop there. I want to give Byron a chance because I could just go on every aspect, but the show is so good.
All right, Byron. Let's hear it.
Okay, so first things first, that opening.
Yes.
An opening is special when I don't want to skip it.
Yes. Likewise.
And me and my roommate Jordan, we were watching like when we were like before I started the first episode. He's like, "You need to watch the opening." I'm like, "Really?" And then Adam's like, "What the hell am I watching?" And then before I knew it, I'm just like, "This is so awesome," and it's on my like list on YouTube Music now. I'll occasionally watch the behind the scenes footage because just the way that everyone plays it straight is like there's got to be some great stories behind the rehearsal and the performance of this because they're just like boom, 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 boom.
Another
boom.
one of the great stories that I just found out. So the choreographer is in fact Alan Tudyk's wife.
Yes. You were telling me that last week.
Greg, what? Actually, I didn't know that. Greg told us that. And Tudyk stood in as John Cena's stand-in anytime he couldn't be there during the rehearsals.
That's
so
awesome.
Alan Tudyk was doing those ridiculous Peacemaker dance moves at some points, many points during the course of prepping for this particular opening. I think that's just hilarious.
That is hilarious. I love the melding of drama and comedy in this entire story. Like,
yeah,
neither of them outstayed their welcome at all. You have like any scene where like John's like with the butterflies or those improv scenes, they were genius, absolute genius. Like that's something that only James Gunn can do.
I gotta say, as amazing as Cena is, and he is, and they're all pretty good. Cena and AG going back and forth. Was yes. The scene where the sheriff that Myrn brings in at the end of that episode, where they show him yes. trying to figure out different ways to look like he's actually torn up about one of his deputies being killed in front of him, is disturbingly hilarious. Oh, just yes. Brilliant. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh God. Yeah. I love the chemistry between the cast, especially between Cena and Danielle Brooks.
Yep.
Who
plays Adebayo.
Yes. Who is she's such a fantastic actress. I watched a little bit of Orange is the New Black, so I was familiar with her from that. She brings a lot. She brings a lot of that energy to it. Jennifer Holland, who plays what's her name?
Harcourt.
Yes, Harcourt. She's a phenomenal comedic actress, and I'd love to see her in more stuff like that because like her timing and her sarcastic wit were phenomenal. Um, One actor that I feel didn't get enough love was Newt Lee, who played
Yes.
Judo Master.
Yes.
Like he was a consummate professional. I followed him on Instagram, and his stories behind the scenes were some of the most interesting stuff on my feed. Like he talked about the finals. He said you talking about how his final scene that he filmed was the one outside the convenience store, and by
Yep.
that point he had gotten a good idea of what the character was supposed to be, and you can tell by the way he was doing all of that. It
It's
was just like so hilarious and so great, and I cannot sing the praises of Gunn enough for actually giving a martial arts character speaking parts,
yep.
which is like I call it Ray Park syndrome, where they just they pay, like we pay you to kick stuff, we don't pay you to talk.
Yep.
It's like some of these guys are phenomenal actors in their own right, like Donnie Yen. Like
Absolutely, and he is, and Nut Lee is wonderful in this.
yes,
Wonderful as a martial artist, but just the sassiest. It's
yes,
perfect, perfect.
and it's like he has like the most. It's a mixture of awkwardness and sarcasm that I didn't think I've never seen actually work, but he's got it down, and I loved every minute of it.
Yep.
Uh, the soundtrack was peak James Gunn. He's a lover of music, and he's a lover. Like he's also going on record saying he's a lover of dance, which is why in almost every piece that he's done in like modern Hollywood has had some strong musical influence or some choreography of some sort. And I'm here for it. I sound like a broken record saying that, but it's true. It's such a phenomenal series, and I'm like Manny. I could go on all night. I don't know if I'm probably forgetting some things too, but
I
I'll
imagine I'll remind you.
yes I'll pass the baton now.
All right. So yes to everything. Particularly, I want to highlight again, as both of you have the chemistry. It's wonderful. It's really easy to tell that these people had a blast. Where is the photo? This is just one of the on the set photos. I'm guessing because of the fact that it's out in front of Peacemaker's mobile home that it's probably pretty early on. And you just look at them; they're all having an absolute blast. The guy in between Harcourt and Peacemaker, I think, is Peter Safran, the producer, who's produced a lot of stuff with James Gunn.
I did just remember one thing actually.
Go ahead.
The work they did with Vigilante was way better than the CW ever did.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yes.
Yes, I had to make that point.
Yep. So other things, I'm not a huge fan of glam metal. I loved every song in this. Gunn's choice of songs. There are a lot of bands that I would never listen to except that song, and he always grabbed that song. Just perfect. But again, it's James Gunn. I mean, if you listen to the soundtracks of the Guardians of the Galaxy, he never makes a wrong pick. Again, like you said, the casting, all of these actors do fantastic jobs. All the way, from the, people with the, seconds of time on screen to the lead. And John Cena is an absolute revelation as somebody who is mentally destroyed by trauma from his childhood, and portrays it believably with deep pathos without relying on it becoming a part of the comedy. I mean, there's comedy moments that sort of build out of the outcomes of this pain, but they never use the pain for comedy.
Yeah, and that's that like that. This makes it a phenomenal redemption arc for him.
Yes. And that's one of the things Gunn has said, is that once he realized that Cena was this kind of an actor and he thought about Peacemaker, he thought, I could actually write a story in which, yeah, Peacemaker is a bad guy, but he's not a villain. He's not evil. And it's a redemption arc. And what does he need to be redeemed from? It is, where's the photo? It is his dad, Augie Smith, also known as the white nationalist, white supremacist, racist, bigot supervillain from DC, White Dragon.
Yeah, I had to look him up too, because I imagine he's one of those things that DC people in DC would want to sweep under the rug.
Well, yeah, except that it's never a bad idea to have a villain that's that horrible, because he's a villain. It's a real easy villain choice to make. But Robert Patrick, I don't know that any actor would dare to be that horrible.
Yeah.
And all kudos to him for playing it as
he's also a Trump supporter, so
Patrick is?
Yep.
Yeah, all right. I've still got to praise him for his work. His work was fantastic.
Separate the art from the artist.
Right. I have a hard time doing that, frankly, and knowing that, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But
it was method acting.
It might have been. I don't know that enough. I mean, if you're a Trump supporter, you got to be comfortable with racism anyway. But his work in this is just absolutely phenomenal. Really, now I think it's a little easier to understand why he could play this character. But I can't imagine anybody, even, this guy he says all of the things that Trump pretends he never says. Oh, and it's just brutal.
Yeah. But it would have felt phoned in if it hadn't been said.
Oh, true. Oh, absolutely. But just like this scene here, here's all of his, his hood-wearing followers giving him literally the Hitler salute. It's yeah.
We're gonna get demonetized for that, aren't we?
Possibly. We'll have to see. So yeah, that's one of my big surprises, and credit needs to go to him for doing that kind of work. But everybody, the writing is tight as a drum. It is exactly as many episodes as it needs to be. It would have felt like they were missing stuff if it was 7 episodes. It would have felt like they were stretching if it was 10. Might have been able to go to 9, but 8 was perfect. And the pacing is fantastic. The action scenes are amazingly well choreographed, and even if they're not gory, they're just outstandingly brutal, and they are often very gory. And logical within the illogic of the series.
Yes.
Peacemaker doesn't really have any powers. He's a really big guy who's been trained to kill in all kinds of ways and loves weapons. And he's got the super abilities of his helmets that his dad, Augie Smith, the White Dragon, actually makes for him. And that's it. So he doesn't do superhero stuff, per se. And that's fantastic. I really like that. The butterflies, when they get in somebody's head and take over their bodies, they sort of amp up all of their physical abilities, and Peacemaker gets his ass handed to him in a lot of cases,
Yes.
till he figures out a pretty interesting way to kill them. Usually, um, and so it's just really smart, good, solid, like Manny said, excellent superhero writing. Um, and I really appreciate that. I love the fact that it's getting a season 2. Thank God.
Thank God. I will say though that I really love the resolution of this season
Yes.
so much, because especially when I buy it's just how come you killed them? It's like he had a believable answer. It wasn't just like because of liberty. It's like he knew there were people that he had to protect.
Right.
And
I like
that's
that.
like the most
Go ahead.
that's the most believable motivation that I feel like anyone can choose.
I also like the fact that, so the story has basically 2 villain plot lines. You've got him dealing with his dad, and then you've also got Project Butterfly and these butterflies that, these alien butterflies that are taking over people. And Gunn chooses to use the butterflies as the possibly sympathetic villains, because of their mission. When they finally actually explain to Peacemaker what it is they're trying to do.
And the cheap shot against anti-maskers was fun too.
Yes. Although he did say that it was, in fact, climate deniers, because he wrote it before the anti-mask and anti-vax stuff really built in. But
enough.
if the shoe fits, but his resolution with his dad, Dad says you're not going to shoot me, and he shoots him in the head. Done. That's it. Perfect.
The look on his face was priceless.
Yes. But then they actually make the resolution with the aliens way more complex. They are in fact killing people, because once they take over, you're dead. Or you will not. Once they leave, you'll be dead. But they're doing it because they destroyed their planet, and they see Earth as a planet that is on that same trajectory from a climate standpoint, and they want to try to stop it. Which is interesting because, and I read this in somebody's analysis of it, and Gunn kind of agrees, that their motivation for the horrible violence that they do is almost exactly what Peacemaker's is initially. I will kill anybody that I need to if it brings about peace.
Killing spiders to save butterflies.
Exactly.
No pun intended.
Yeah, good one. So I love the story. I love the pacing, the writing. It's all fantastic. Really, really good stuff. Oh, and I do want to specifically call out, I love the fact that there is a homoerotic undertone running through this entire thing that they both use for comedy, but also treat very well, because they never sort of bring it up and then slam it down. It's just always there. One of the bands that he absolutely goes nuts over when he finds out there's somebody who actually has an album of this band is Choir Boys. It's
yes,
QYRE Boys. And this was before I knew that all of this stuff actually existed. They got to be making this stuff up. So while I'm watching the show, I'm looking it up. And it's a band from somewhere in Scandinavia that had to change their name because the record label wouldn't let them use their original name, which was Queer Boys. And they are, in fact, a gay glam metal band.
That's awesome.
And once I saw the spelling, QYRE, it's like, queer. Let me look this up. And sure enough, it was Queer Boys. And I guarantee James Gunn knew that.
I bet he did.
And watching Peacemaker dance around in his tidy whities to a band that was originally called Queer Boys is about as homoerotic as you can get.
And the line that he says about Choir Boys was on point. Was like, this is back when men were men and weren't afraid to dress like women.
Like women, yeah.
It's like, I love James Gunn for this.
Yes. So I really appreciate that. I thought that was a really nice touch And it runs through the entire series. All right, Manny, if there is anything, what didn't you like? What didn't work for you?
Everything worked. I'll pass. But I may have to watch this again to see if I can pinpoint. But on the first run of watching this, I really seriously couldn't find anything that I didn't like about it.
Okay. Byron.
There wasn't I would have loved to see more of Viola Davis. That's like really my only complaint.
Yep.
I love
the fact that she's in it is fantastic.
Yes. I mean, and the fact that she has a connection to such a strong connection to one of the members of this team was pretty cool. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of complaints. There are a few nitpicks, but it's just like, I kind of didn't like seeing I didn't like seeing what's his name's butt to like in that last episode. Adrian Chase seeing his butt.
Vigilante. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of gross. But that's typical James Gunn.
Yep.
Although it was a finely sculpted butt.
It's a good butt. All right, so the only kind of complaint I have, and it's a complaint not about Gunn or the actors or anything else, and it's also kind of a compliment to Gunn, is there are times when the lack of budget shows. And
it's kind of his style, though, right?
Well, yeah, it is kind of his style, but in the Suicide Squad, he was clearly given a budget and he ran with it. And here he was given a particular budget, and as James Gunn does, he does absolutely the best that he can possibly do with that budget. But in particular at the end, and here's the scene with Adebayo with the human torpedo helmet. The special effects around the human torpedo thing just was a little bit off. When the special effects for what the human torpedo target was at that point, the cow, the alien gigantic thing that they milk, was brilliant, was perfect, was so James Gunn.
I have to say one thing about the cow.
Yep.
Every scene that thing was in, I'm just like, I wonder if he's saying, "Kill me."
Yeah, exactly. Kill me now. So that's my only sort of complaint. But like I said, it's also a compliment that Gunn did as much as he did with that budget. And that season 2 is going to have a bigger budget.
Oh, hell yes.
This was such a popular show. It did so well for them. So, yay for that. But that would be really kind of my only criticism of it. And I agree that, more Waller is always better.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense why they probably won't put so much money into it, because Peacemaker is not a well-known superhero. You have to be really into DC Comics to know who Peacemaker is.
Yep.
So they took a gamble with this. It's like, I bet you it was just the fact that James Gunn is such a terrific writer / director that they greenlit this.
Oh, yeah.
I can't see anyone else really getting away with doing a show about a D-list superhero.
Well, James Gunn has a gift for making a silk purse out of Sal's ear.
He sure does. I mean, who would have thought that, the Guardians of the Galaxy, which realistically was not a well-known Marvel property, would have become the monster hit that it was.
Yeah.
I have one more. I thought it was going to be something I was going to complain about until it so much turned into something I didn't and absolutely loved. And this is super spoiler for the very end of the show for anybody who is still on the chat or watching this that really wants this not to be spoiled. This is really the time not to. But right at the end, guess who shows up? It's the Justice League.
Yes.
And when they first showed up, I was going, "Oh, come on. I mean, this is really you're gonna do this. They're all in shadow. It's like at the end of Shazam where Superman shows up in the high school, and it's not obviously not really Henry Cavill. It's like you're gonna do all this like CG or body doubles or whatever it is, and then it's really Jason Momoa as Aquaman and really Ezra Miller as Flash, and they really repeat the jokes that have been saying all along about how Aquaman fucks fish. And
that's where the remainder of that budget went.
Honestly, not I don't think so. Momoa wanted to do it. And then Gunn,
of course Ezra wanted to do it.
Well, as it turns out, Miller really wanted to do it, although Gunn didn't know that. Miller got in touch with him, or somebody said that, hey, Ezra Miller's a huge fan of your movies. And so he connected with him, and then Miller or Gunn literally said, hey, I've got this idea that the Flash shows up at the end. And he's, yep, I don't get, whatever, I'm in.
He's an Omega level geek, so of course he was in.
Absolutely. And in keeping with the kind of theme of how wonderful everything, the whole team here works together, the guy who plays, the actor who plays Myrn, Chikudwi Iwuji, is in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 as well. And he needed a
yes.
screen test to get him in there. And DC said, okay, yeah, we'll let you film, the screen test all right there on the set, of Peacemaker, because he's already there, and that's fine. Even though it's going for Marvel, we don't care. Because he was already in production on Guardians of the Galaxy, when he found out that Ezra Miller was willing to do that bit, Marvel let him film Ezra Miller's stuff against a green screen in the Guardians of the Galaxy sets.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I was like, this just blows my mind. DC and Marvel literally giving up studio time for the other people's properties. Golf claps to that, man.
That's because James Gunn is their golden goose,
which Marvel, or particularly Disney, almost killed. So all right, so themes, tone, messages. Manny, it was there are obviously lots of messages and themes coming out of this. What do you think were the primary things that James Gunn was trying to tell us with this?
Some of them were typical ones, like family's not your blood, it's who you make with you, your friends. That's pretty much the one thing that sticks out. And about trust, and pretty much like work and personal life, and that seemed to come up a lot, especially with some of the secondary characters, with like, they want to be with who they want to be, but the job must come first, and there was a balance of that.
Yep.
I guess really it's just and also about trauma. Trauma played a big part in Peacemaker's upbringing, and him trying to deal with that, and I'm glad it never really it wasn't solved at the end of the episode, and he's still processing it. But I like the fact that there is some sort of first steps towards something. Yeah. Although I don't know if I should say putting a bullet in would be the first step, but I get it.
Don't necessarily follow his example.
Yeah.
Byron,
see a therapist.
Yeah, I definitely would say that trauma is a huge theme here, because you got Peacemaker, who is working through his daddy issues, and you see a lot of the, as a psychology student, you see so many of those textbook examples, like him making excuses for his dad, and just this is like abuser 101 here, like abuse survivor 101 here. It is right there, and to an extent you see that with Adebayo, because anyone who has read a DC comic in the past 20 years can tell you just how horrible Amanda Waller is as a human being.
Yes. And I have to say, both Suicide Squad movies, that was probably her performance is probably the best thing about the first one.
Yes.
And there's so many good things about the second one, but again, Amanda Waller is the villain in both of those movies.
Yes.
Starro's a victim. Now,
Mm.
She's humanized a little bit in this series, but make no mistake, she's like she definitely has indoctrinated her baby girl.
Yeah.
And
yeah, just because it proves that Amanda Waller had sex once and had a baby doesn't mean that.
yeah.
Yeah,
And she's like, yeah, and by the end of the series, you see her breaking away from like her mom's tendrils.
Yep.
And yeah, there will be repercussions for that because again, this is Amanda fucking Wall we're talking about. You don't fuck with the wall and not expect some kind of consequences.
Yep. So go ahead.
Well, yeah, like trauma, moving past it, and redemption.
Yes. Yep.
There was a
That's all I
parallel.
got to say about Diet.
There is a parallel between Amanda Waller and her daughter, that story arc, and then Peacemaker and his father, like this
Yeah.
child versus parent.
Yeah. So I agree with all of those. I was going to bring up, no, Byron did, so I'll just reiterate. Redemption is a very big, important part of this. Peacemaker goes through a redemption, and Adebayo certainly goes through not necessarily a redemption, but a growth out of just somebody who's willing to do what mommy says into her own person.
Harcourt as well.
Harcourt goes through a very strong growth arc as well. A lot of the characters do. One of the things that is, it's a through line through James Gunn's work for sure. But so much of the superhero world, Marvel and DC, is daddy issues.
Yep.
And of all of the characters in James Gunn's world that are horrible fathers, Augie Smith is the worst. And I think that's one of the other things in here is that by having Peacemaker, traditionally a villain, I mean he was in Belle Reve, as the protagonist of this story, Gunn is saying that, look, a lot of things about a lot of people are a lot more complicated than a lot of us really just boil it down to.
Mm-hmm.
Except a racist, bigot, white supremacist. He's evil.
I mean,
that is an evil person with evil beliefs, no matter how you cut it.
I mean, that's how you surpass Joe Tucker.
Missing it.
Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Interesting. And you know what that brings up? I just completely forgot about this before we go. Eagly.
Yes. I love Eagly so much.
Voiced by D. Bradley Baker.
one of the best voice actors in the game.
Absolutely. And 100% every shot CG, and that is one of the most believable CG animals ever put into anything.
That was some damn good CG because I don't know who's doing the texturing on these guys, but they're not getting paid enough. Jeez.
Probably not. Ivan jumped right in on that one to Facebook saying, I want to get hugged by an eagle twice. Agreed 100%. I just saw the non-special effect version of that where he's reaching for his cell phone to get the selfie of Eagly hugging him, and it's literally a roughly eagle torso-shaped white blob that he's holding onto.
That is awesome.
And it's like, oh, just it's so good, so good. And hey, if Eagly's budget was why the special effects with the human torpedo helmet weren't 100% on point, I'm fine with that. Eagly was fantastic. All right, that's it, folks.
It surpassed Luke Skywalker in the Book of Boba Fett. which I thought was pretty
I
damn
think they
good.
really did a good job improving on that special effect from The Mandalorian. Even
Yes.
his voice was frankly the worst thing about
Yes.
Book of Boba Fett. Anyway, that's a different show. Um, recommendation, yes or no? Scale of 1 to 10, where does it land? And once again, we'll keep going around. Manny.
Oh, definitely. This is a 10. This is like anyone asks for like a superhero show that can handle gore and violence. Yeah, this is it. This is the best superhero TV show I've seen in a long time.
That sounds like a strong recommendation as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
And Byron.
Okay, as a wrestling fan and a trauma fan, I gotta get myself ready. If you like this show, give me a hell yeah!
Okay. And numerical rating?
I don't think there's a number high enough to rate this show.
Well, you got to do
Like,
it within a 10, so.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 10. Because there's so much to love.
Awesome. So I am also recommending it very, very strongly. If you are any kind of a superhero fan, and again, you're old enough and comfortable enough to handle the gore and the crudity, the nudity, all of that sort of stuff. This is absolutely 100% mature rating. Then yes, a strong, strong, strong recommendation. I am going to give it a 9 out of 10 because knowing what or projecting what I think they're going to do with the budget and so on in season 2, I think season 2 is going to be a 10 out of 10. So I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. It is almost perfect.
Fair enough.
So before we give any of the promos and do our goodbyes, I wanted to do this up at the top of the show and I completely forgot about it. So we're going to do it here. And I'm kind of springing this on Manny, but I think he's going to agree with me 100%. We stand 100% with the people of Ukraine, and we stand 100% with our government's efforts to punish Vladimir Putin and Russia for attacking and invading Ukraine. And locally, we stand completely with the trans community everywhere, but particularly the trans community in Texas, and in particular the trans youth in Texas, in condemning the efforts of Governor Abbott and the state's attorney general in essentially trying to turn an illegal, non-requested opinion piece from the attorney general into an anti-trans executive order by the governor. So
I mean, we dealt with something similar not too many years ago.
we did. And again, and I don't want to bring this down, but if there's a show that we just talked about that talks about fighting against bigotry and the consequences of violence,
Yep.
that's it. And that's it. That's it, folks. Let's see. So Monday will be no Nerd Caliber, and it will be favorite D&D characters or classes or subclasses or subcharacters, or there's so many to choose from. And the reason we're doing that is because next Thursday's Full Fat Spoiler Chat will be The Legend of Vox Machina, the Critical Role based D&D based series, animated series that's on Amazon
It's
Prime.
based off the first campaign from Critical Role.
Literally telling the first campaign from Critical Role. And in between that, of course, Tuesday night, we have our Nerd Week Live, where we'll talk about nerd news coming up in the week.
And we got a lot of stuff.
There's plenty of stuff already. Hopefully, it won't be as big as the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks were just insane.
I think it might be pretty big.
It might
again, be. Pokemon Day.
Okay. We'll have to see. Anyway, 2 promos before we go by. That's our URL on Twitch, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. If you have a Twitch account, we'd love you to go there and follow us if you'd like to. And our second promo is for our Patreon account, and that is that URL, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Again, we'd love you to go there, check it out. If you want to become a patron, we'd love to have you. We have just 3 very well-considered tiers, and $2 is our lowest tier, so anybody can join
I might
in.
offer some art if you want to be generous.
There you go. And we do know, if you were watching the show Tuesday night, that Lewis offered a picture of, well, never mind. Anyway. With that, we'll be doing our goodbyes. Manny, give us a goodbye if you would.
Take care, everyone. Be safe. Get your eagly hugs out there to the ones you love, and be safe out there.
Absolutely. Byron.
Hey guys, thanks for dropping by. If you want, join me on Twitter, BD0Art. Also on Instagram, same name. Working on a couple other projects with my art. And if you want to check out my webcomic series on Webtoons, it is Sisterhoods. 2 words, Sisterhoods.
Do that.
Have a good night, guys.
And last comment, sneaking in there at the end, Sophia Garrity. Hello, I'm going to be at Comic-Con in April in the Convention Center. Are you going to be there? If you mean Wicked Comic-Con, yes, we absolutely will be. We'll be set up. If you know the hotel, the Weston Waterfront, the hallway that runs along the ballroom area, down at the lowest level of the hotel, we will be all the way at the far end of that, where the doors that open up onto what would be Lawn D, although I'm pretty sure it's going to be closed because it's April, early April, and they won't be open in it because it'll probably be cold. But we'll be set up down there with our studio, and we'll be taking pictures and so on. So we'll see you there if that's the con you mean. And with that, like everybody else said, please stay safe, folks. We got a big snowstorm coming up here in New England this weekend. So for those of us who are in our area, New England, please stay safe. And otherwise, everybody else, stay safe from their COVID stuff. And we'll see you at an upcoming show. Bye-bye.